That's not a real cake, is it?
Yeah, it's a real cake.
It's a real cake?
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Hey, I'm Valentina V and welcome to 4-Minute Film School. Today we are doing a high-key commercial lighting setup indoors with big windows. We're gonna go from this to this. Let's go. We are at a cute indie shop in Los Angeles that sells random trinkets. Just kidding. We are at a set. You may not have a set accessible to you, but that's okay because you can use these same principles no matter what you're shooting and where you are. We're talking about controlling sunlight, which means controlling the spill of sunlight, controlling the direction of it, and really using it to our advantage to make something that's more dynamic. You can see the sunlight that's on me right now. It's coming from all directions because there's windows everywhere. And it's nice, but it's flat. It's basic.
Yeah, basic.
We're gonna take this and ramp it up a little bit. The setup for this shot is we have a shopkeeper alone at her store in the morning, and this is her little establishment, and she is just standing at this table fixing up things. It's the morning and she is just feeling so happy because it's finally her store's grand reopening after a long hiatus. So she is just fulfilled and satisfied, and finally she takes a deep, long breath, turns around and opens these double doors, and all the customers waiting outside come in and start shopping. I want it to feel Disney-esque. I want the lighting and the camera movement to be very high-key, romantic comedy, 500 Days of Summer, just a happy, inspirational, bright moment. One of the reasons that I chose this location is specifically because of where the sun is. And I noticed that the sun is always going to be on this side of the entire building, which means that there's never going to be any direct streams of sunlight coming from these windows, which is perfect. Because if you're shooting a wide and then punching in for close-ups, if you're trying to get all this coverage, you don't want that sun to always be changing in the background. Now let's talk about camera. Today we're using the Canon C70 with the Rokinon Zine, like the booklet. We're shooting on the Canon C70 today with the Rokinon Zine lenses. We're gonna start out on the 85, see if we want to use that. I think we may go wider a little bit for the wide shot. You never know. We're also going to Steadicam today, but instead of having the Steadicam operator stand there for hours while we check our lighting and check our framing, we're just putting it on sticks first. We have the tilt-to-nucleus here, which is a wireless follow focus. So when the camera is on the Steadicam operator is busy operating the directionality of the camera, not the focus. That's why it's important to have a wireless follow focus so the AC can be on that and have a separate monitor that they can dial in the focus. So the C70 has built-in neutral density filters, which are filters that you would usually put in front of your lens to cut down on the amount of light while keeping all of your other settings the same. But because they're inside, that's actually pretty helpful. The one kind of disadvantage of this is that they are stepped. So it's not a variable neutral density like you would have with something that's like a round polarizer. It's just 3 different ones: a 2-stop, a 4-stop, and a 6-stop. When I drop in the 4 stops of ND, I can actually check here on the histogram and I can see that it's topping out around 80 IRE, which is pretty safe. If I were to add another stop of ND, it takes it down to under 60 IRE, which is like fairly underexposed. So I want to keep that line from dipping too far down or too far up. If I take all the ND off, it's clearly clipping. So this is kind of what I'm looking at for how much ND I need. It's looking really nice right now, so I'm gonna roll on this so that I can show you what it looks like before production design, before lighting, before I do anything to the shot. As you can see, it's pretty flat, number 1, because there's just lighting everywhere. And number 2, because there's reflections everywhere, you can actually see our reflections in the back window. We're now going to do production design and lighting and get it that much better. I think it's very important to also look at the colors in the space and design with the colors in mind. So in this case, this is mostly green walls. A lot of the actual items in here are green, and we have pops of yellow, which are awesome. And this is why I asked our actress to also wear yellow, so that she can complement a lot of the other production design in the space. And Green and yellow are also very happy, positive colors. It would not be the same environment, the same scene, if the colors were like red. It would be completely different of a vibe. I'm gonna set up our fake sun, which is a 600D, a super powerful LED light, and I'm gonna hide the stand, which is a rolling combo stand, right in this corner, so you won't see the stand. And I wanna point it directly at this big window over here. We're gonna put curtains on the inside to not only hide the light source, but also to sheer it out a little bit and make it a little bit more soft. Striking. The 600D, I want to raise it so that it looks more like the sun, because the sun always comes from up high and we see the directionality of it through these shears. So I want that angle to be lower, and you can see the shadows from the windows are going to fall a little bit differently. That looks really good. Over. For the key light, I want a 300D2 and a Light Dome SE. I chose the Light Dome SE because it is smaller than a Light Dome 2. I want a nice soft key light on her face because this is supposed to be just this beautiful location, beautiful soft lighting, and it just so happens that this location has a lot of beams up at the top, so we can actually mount a light up there and mount a diffusion on the light. And this diffusion is actually really great because it's compact. It'll give us a little bit more headroom to play with when we're on the Steadicam because it's not going to dip into frame. Having a C-clamp like this is a really good way to mount anything to the ceiling or to any sort of beam. You just twist this, open, and then clamp the beam in between. But if you're using a location like a studio where you don't want to damage anything, it's important to have cribbing, which is essentially just pieces of wood. You can use 2x4s, you can use any type of wood. It's really lightweight. You put the beam in between it, and then you put the C-clamp in. In this case, we have the light and the diffusion's already on the light, so we're just using one of the baby pins. It's also really important to have a safety chain, so just in case a light happens to fall, it'll get caught on the safety chain and won't damage anything or won't hit your actors. Since our talent is going to be standing right here, we got her key light, which is this nice soft light up there. Now we need to get a little bit of a rim light. This is potential sunlight that is coming in through the window. If we put a stand right here outside the window, guess what? We're gonna see the stand. But I want this window open because I wanna put people behind the window so that even in the wide, you see that her customers are like ready to go, ready to come in. So I don't wanna put curtains here. I wanna see the people. I don't wanna put a stand over here. Instead, I'm gonna rig that backlight up there, and it's gonna give her a nice sunny sort of rim light as if the sun is coming from this window. We're gonna rig another 300D2 up there because it's fairly lightweight. We're gonna do the same thing with a C-clamp with cribbing, and I have these barn doors on it. That way the light is very directional. It doesn't spill onto all of the walls. It just hits her right on the back of the head at her A mark. An A mark or a first mark is where our talent stands at the beginning of the shot, and then the B mark is where they go to. So that in the wide, we can have everything lit, and then with the Steadicam, we can just come in and get the close-ups on her hands, get the close-ups on her face, and all of that. It'll already be lit. The last thing we need to do is kill any of the light that we don't want in the scene, namely these windows right here. They're not gonna be playing in our scene at all, and having them here introduces a lot more ambient light than we need. So we're gonna take black floppies, which are 4x pieces of black fabric that flop over, and we're gonna block these windows over here. Okay, so when you're setting up the black floppy, you wanna make sure that the pin is on the outside, and then just use that arm to get it as close to the window as possible. Sometimes if there are light leaks, you can also use gaff tape to tape the edges off, but we're gonna hold off on that for a sec because maybe we don't need the gaff tape. And also watch out whenever you're gaff taping anything to a colored wall, the actual paint might peel off. So don't tape anything unless you absolutely have to, because you can damage it. And I'm sorry to those people I've done that to before, I'm sorry. You know what, Tway? I think we need another 600 out there because this 300 right here, her backlight, it's pretty hot. Yeah. So I want to take down the exposure in order to even it out for the 300, but that means that the 600 is going to be lost. So do we have another one?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's throw another one out there. Same angle, right next to it.
Yeah.
So if we put them together,
Duplicate.
just duplicate it and it'll make that effect even more. So let's do that.
Got it.
Now I have the production design set. As you can see, it's really dark in the foreground. That's on purpose. That's because I want to give dimension to the shot. And now let's go light by light. This is now very high key. It's giving that bright, sunshiny commercial look, but I can take it even one step further by adding a Promist filter. So Eric, if you could, this is the Black Promist 1, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So this filter is going to diffuse everything a little bit, give everything a dreamlike quality. Usually I wouldn't use something that is 1 strength because 1 strength is pretty intense. I'd go 1/4 or 1/2, but because we're trying to give this like dreamlike, Disney-like atmosphere, this like first day that your shop is back open, I think it's really important to have that filtration. Another great thing about shooting on Steadicam and lighting for the wide, first is that now that we're lit, we can just punch in, come closer, or change the lens, swap out a lens to an 85, get close-ups of her fingers, get close-ups on her face, get close-ups of her opening, and do all that without having to change any lighting, without having to change anything, because we're on Steadicam and we can just rock it and just keep going. And that's the shot. So now that we got it on sticks, let's finally put it up on steady and let's see it move. All right, I think we're good. That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you so much. That is how you create an interior daylight scene that is high key instead of flat, by supplementing the indirect sunlight with some directional lights and by just building the set around so that it looks more dynamic with negative fill and with filtration. I want to know, what is your favorite technique for lighting interior daylight scenes? Let me know in the comments for a chance to win an Aputure MC. And I think I speak for everyone here on set when I say thank you so much for supporting this channel. We're having a lot of fun making these videos. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. My name is Valentina. My social media links are down below. And until next time, happy shooting. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's go. Yeah. Okay.